What's going on, crazy kids? I just got back actually from seeing Thor Ragnarok, and figured I'd give you my little in-depth, spoiler-free review of the movie. Yeah, I won't spoil this movie. Trust me. This is one of those movies you have to see for yourselves. Trust me. Um, so in Thor Ragnarok, we follow Thor as he is basically fighting this new villainess rather, Hela, the goddess of death. And let me just start off by saying Kate Blanchett as Hela, frightening. She was definitely one of the better villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Trust me, she was incredible. Um, this time around, Thor has to fight without his hammer, and he gets teleported to this planet called Sakaar, where he has to escape the Grandmaster, played awesomely by Jeff Goldblum. And once he runs into the Hulk, he has to find a way to escape Sakaar, get back to Asgard, and stop Hela from the impending Ragnarok, as this film is called. Um, Now, when it came to this movie, I was a little hesitant about it, considering Thor: The Dark World was a pretty big letdown in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, it's right up there with Iron Man 2 and Ant-Man as my biggest disappointments in the MCU so far. Um, but compared to the first Thor movie, I definitely have to say Ragnarok is definitely the best Thor movie in the trilogy. I like the first movie, but after watching Dark World, Ragnarok was definitely something that the Thor trilogy needed. A rehaul and a re-realization of what made Thor such a pretty good character in the first place. Um, what else is there to say about Chris Hemsworth as Thor? I mean, he basically embodies this character. And in this movie you actually see some pretty good emotion in this character. Like I said, I won't spoil what happens to it, but Thor goes through some pretty dark shit to stop to prevent Ragnarok from happening. And you can actually feel for Thor in this movie, but he's not the only character you feel for in this movie. The director of this movie, I'm sorry, I really can't say his name for the life of me, but I think what he was able to do was make this movie character driven. And I think this is what the movie succeeded at the best, was his characters. Because when I was watching Thor Ragnarok, it made me feel reminiscent of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Like, those movies were able to show me characters that I'd never even heard of before and make them all relevant and told a really good story. Thor Ragnarok was basically the same thing, except it took characters that we knew, Thor and Hulk and Loki, and joined them up with this new character, Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. And let me just say, she was a badass bitch. Like, every scene she was in, she was awesome. I can't wait to see Valkyrie in future Marvel movies. I hope she's in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, because she looks like someone who would fit in the Guardians very well. Um, Chris Hemsworth was awesome. Tom Hiddleston as Loki, I mean, fantastic. What else is there to say? Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie was awesome. Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster was awesome. And surprisingly, he's in the movie a lot more than what the trailer gives us. Like, without spoiling what he does in the movie, he is in a lot more. He's in a lot more than what the trailers give off for. So yeah, his character in this movie is really awesome. He's very awkward, but then again, his character's very Jeff Goldblumish. It's a character you'd expect him to play. It was awesome to see Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner and the Hulk again, because this is the first time you have seen not only Thor, but the Hulk since Age of Ultron. I mean, yeah, Thor did have a brief cameo in Doctor Strange, but like I said, it was brief. So this is the first time we've seen these two characters on screen in a big movie in 2 years, since Age of Ultron. And you do find out what happens to Hulk ever since Age of Ultron. And what I liked about the Hulk this time, and this really isn't spoiling anything, they did show this in the trailers, is that they made Bruce Banner and the Hulk two separate entities. Like, Bruce is totally different from the Hulk, and Hulk is totally different from Bruce. And you can totally tell the different personas, and I totally like that, because it made me feel reminiscent, of the 2008 Incredible Hulk, where Edward Norton was trying to control the beast within and has trying to eliminate him for years. So it reminds me of that Bruce Banner tormented by the monster inside him. So it was definitely a nice touch to it. And this movie added a lot of Planet Hulk references. So if you are a fan of the Planet Hulk comic stories, you're definitely going to dig this movie because the story in it is awesome. It's great. And this is not spoiling anything. The fight between Hulk and Thor is just fantastic. It's what you expected. It's a great time, and there's a couple scenes in that movie that will leave you laughing. So, yeah, it's definitely a blast. And I said earlier that this movie felt reminiscent of the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It felt reminiscent in the like those two movies in the fact that I had fun with them. Like, yeah, I had fun with the first Thor movie, but there were a couple of times where I had many times just, have fun with it at times because it just became too dark. And then Thor the Dark World, I had a hard time enjoying that movie sometimes. It just felt like that movie was on autopilot. But with Ragnarok, it was like it took what Dark World screwed up and basically revamped it and made us realize why we loved the character of Thor in the first place. God, there's so many things I could say about this movie because it's really good. I mean, compared to the other MCU movies and other Marvel movies that we've seen this year, that's another discussion for another time. Well, we'll leave that for another time. If I only had one minor complaint about the movie, is that by the half of the second movie, I felt, not physically or emotionally drained, but I just... Okay, you know what? Yeah, I can call it you can call it physically drained. By the time I got to the second half, I felt physically drained. Now, is that to say that the second half of the movie was boring? Oh, hell no. God, no. The second half of the movie and the final fights in particular are fantastic. All the fight scenes and the action are definitely amazing. It's definitely a step up from Dark World. That box kind of turned and it scared the hell out of me. Excuse me for that jump. But yeah, the first half of the movie was just, it was all fun and it didn't stop. Like I was not bored at all. But that's not, I mean, I was definitely not bored in the second half of the movie. It's just that the first half kind of just made you so amped up that by the time you get to the second half of the movie, you just kind of felt like you just feel drained and you just like, okay, wrap it up here now. So, honestly, that's probably the only minor complaint I had with the movie, so that's not even really that big of a deal, really. So, if you negated that minor complaint, just take into the fact that this movie has great characters, it tells a great story, and it tells the whole Ragnarok aspect really, really well, and the end result of the movie left me very happy, and I'm definitely glad that they did this. If I'd have to give this movie a grade, excuse me, jeez, long night. Honestly, I would have to give this movie an A minus. Yeah, take that back. I'd give that an A minus actually, because it's one of the more fun Marvel movies I've seen this year, and I'm amped to see what Marvel has for the future. Because next year will be the 10 years since Spider-Man came out, and we get not only Black Panther, but we get Avengers Infinity War 2. So Thor Ragnarok was definitely a good closing for this year, but it's going to be a good lead into next year. So good things are coming, no doubt. So yeah, Thor Ragnarok, it gets an A. It's definitely a step up from Thor the Dark World. So if you get a chance to see this movie, don't pass it up. You're gonna have a blast. And this movie's actually pretty funny too. Like a lot of people were telling me, like, dude, prepare to laugh. Like you're gonna laugh a lot in this movie, and I was laughing a lot, quite a bit. And some people were telling me the same thing about Stephen King's It movie that came out back in September. They were telling me, dude, prepare to laugh a lot. And it's a horror movie compared to what Thor is, and needless to say, I was laughing in both movies. So yeah, people weren't wrong. So, yeah, Thor Ragnarok is definitely an A. If you go check this movie out, I hope to see this movie again, and I hope to see you crazy kids again soon. Take it easy, guys.